Welcome to the data visualization classes. We're going to start with the overview, and I'm also excited for this one. Why? Because throughout my life, my scientific life, academic life, I've seen many times stuff like this, and this, and this, and this. And I wondered, oh my God, because I don't understand what's going on there. But now I know. It's about knowing how to effectively communicate your data as well. And in this module, you'll know everything that you need to know in order to do so. So the first thing that we have to learn is the 3 pillars of effective data visualization. And these are your content, of course. That's your data. That's why you're creating a graph in the first place. And that's what brings meaning to it. The second is attractiveness. It has to be visually inviting, and its essence has to be highlighted. And execution, of course, it has to be brought to life. And that doesn't mean copying and pasting from your paper. And let's start with a few definitions. I am not a native English speaker, and I assume that most of you aren't as well. I actually have loads of people from Spain, Switzerland, Portugal, Netherlands that watch our content. So it's important for you to know that a figure is a visual depiction of something. It can be practically anything, even a photograph. Now inside figures, there are charts, and these are more specific. Charts are graphic representations of data, and usually they depict numbers or numerical relationships. And the most common form of charts are the graphs. And most of the time they can be treated as synonyms. But graphs are always the ones with 2 axes. And this can be the bars graphs or a line graph, for example. So bear in mind, 2 axes. Apart from that, in terms of data visualization, we also have the tables and diagrams. Being tables the ones with columns and rows, and a diagram, a visual representation of a structure or a process. Now with that said, you have to know that the rules for use of text apply here. Simply put, avoid what's on top and only use bold or italic when you want to highlight something, and never at the same time. Also try to avoid typing at an angle, as it makes it more difficult for people to read. So this is the basic overview. Avoid using random colors. Instead, use just one. And then you have your accent color if you want to highlight something. Again, that's a simple way for you to generate contrast. And I would still recommend using the same color, just a lighter or darker version of it. That's because lighter and darker is easier for your eyes to differentiate. So opt for that instead of using another color. If you remember our class on colors, it means that your accent color has to have a different value, which means that if I convert this to grayscale, it will still be very effective. So if you want to test your contrast, you can also do this. Now for titles, write them in a conclusion form. And in this case, my type is in our main color, which is dark blue. But in doubt, I always recommend putting in black, because that's the one that provides the highest contrast. Same if you have legends. So keep that in mind. I cannot stress enough for you not to copy and paste from your paper. By now, I really hope that you already understood that. Those writing your paper and creating your slides are completely different exercises. And the way your audience consumes the content is also completely different. A great tip that I have for you is that your charts have to stand on their own. So with enough context from your previous slides and your whole presentation, and maybe by adding a title here that states a conclusion, it should be enough for my audience to quickly understand what's going on there. And obviously, if there's a clear focal point, highlight it. Just make sure you avoid any clutter and represent your data as clearly as possible, while also being consistent with the colors. And at last, make sure you present one figure at a time. It's way too common for a slide like this come up, and maybe the presenter spends 5-10 minutes talking about this particular graph. And while he or she is discussing about this graph, the fact that other graphs are displayed at the same time means that someone in the audience can be paying attention and distracted with this graph, for example. So in this way, you'll be breaking the focus. People will look at whatever figure catches their eye. And really, it doesn't really matter what figure you're presenting. You already lost their attention. There's seriously no reason why you would be distracting your audience, having visual elements that aren't being currently discussed. If you really want to present 2 or more figures, consider presenting them individually, one and then the other. And if you want to draw a comparison between them, after presenting each of them individually, then you can have them in the same slide and discuss whatever points you want to make. And this brings us back to something we already talked about. And please, you shouldn't be worrying about the amount of slides. You can have 100 slides, as long as you only include stuff that you will talk about. There is no golden rule for the amount of slides, only the amount of stuff in a slide. And 99% of the time, there will be only one message per slide. Focus on that message. Now let's jump into the most common figures. And in science, those are 5. Line graphs, and these are used when you want to show a trend of continuous data, usually over time. Then there are the vertical bars or the columns graphs. And these are the best for comparison when you have discrete quantities of non-continuous data. Then there are the pie charts, and these are best for you to show a proportion of the whole. And these 3 are the ones that in this course we're going to be diving a little bit further into. But for your information, there are also the histogram that reports the distribution of data and the frequency with which they occur. And at last you have the scatter plot. It's basically used to display relationship when you have 2 continuous variables. And with that said, a quick trick that you guys can use is using animation for a maximum impact. When there's a point that you want to make in a line graph, for example, you can discuss one trend and then make the other appear, and finally your most important one. And this way you guarantee that your explanations be very clear, and if someone wants to pay attention, you'll be doing them a favor for them to understand. Thanks for watching. I just wanted to ask you something. Did you know that the number 1 reason your scientific presentations lack impact is your visuals? Yeah, that's the number 1 reason. And in case you liked this video and you want to take the next step, we launched the Design for Scientists full course. And in this course you have more than 90 minutes of effective to the point content with 19 classes divided into 5 modules. And these are the exact pillars that you need in order to create these effective presentations. Basically, you learn all the design fundamentals, the most crucial visual principles, the key design elements, how to present data effectively, and other bonus materials, such as a template for your next poster, and resources that every scientist should know about, but probably don't. And the best part, you don't need any prior experience in design, and all the content will be available wherever you are, whenever you need. All via on-demand short videos that go to the point. And when you complete the course, you'll get your certificate. And hopefully, this will be you. Enroll right now, you have the link below, and I'll see you in the course.